All right, so I'm having an interview with Rayleen and she will introduce herself.
Hello, my name's Rayleen Summers. I'm a member of the Mootawarra tribe, which is associated with Weilmoringle, that area. But my family connections are in Mootawarra, Goodooga, Brewarrina, and some in Bourke. Yeah.
Okay. You're here in Dubbo. What brings you to Dubbo?
Training. I come here to retrain. I used to work as a AIN in aged care, and I decided that wasn't sustainable for me, so I moved to Dubbo to retrain.
So have you lived in Dubbo for a long time?
No, only since January this year.
So you're a far west girl?
Yes. I have travelled around in various locations.
Yeah, so for doing what?
Well, just mainly family, really. Mm. I've moved down, been in Sydney and in Victoria, southwest Victoria, and but always come home to the Western District. Yeah.
And why is that? Why you always come home?
Connection with family a lot and getting back to land.
Why is that important for you?
I think it gives me strength, so that's the reason why I come home a lot. I find when I'm away, especially out of New South, I'm more disorientated and isolated.
So that family connection is the most important thing for you?
Yes.
Okay. This video is being created to provide information to students who might be studying law, health, education, etc. And they might end up coming out and working with Aboriginal people. Can you give any examples of where you may have experienced or seen conflict that's occurred because of cultural difference or miscommunication?
I had some personal experience in that, where going through, supporting family members through children was taken away through the Welfare Act, and she was instead of coming to all the family, they actually asked the docks workers actually worked amongst themselves and only in one particular area, which was not, and they actually assumed that we would have our beliefs and along their same lines, and they actually and they knew about our family. But when we asked the questions about, do they really know us, they were and knew of our circumstances around, looking after children in it, they wasn't able to answer a lot of those questions. And so we had to go through a system, through the process of negotiating with docs, but because that broke down and we had no confidence in them, we had to go to the Ombudsman, and through the Ombudsman we then spoke with a manager of that area, and we had to go do a lot of our discussions through them, and in that process we was able to secure my family member, her children back into our care, into kinship care. But we was very lucky because we hadn't, because we were the extended family in non-Aboriginal eyes, we wasn't considered a close kinship as they'd like it, and we had to go through that. But in our family, we had a strong kinship ties, and we had protocols out to deal with issues. But because they had not experienced that or not had knowledge of us as a family, they tended to assume a lot of stuff, and that's where it broke down.
And what was the impact of that on your family and the children?
That the children was initially taken off my family member, and that one was in the middle of being, into foster care, permanent foster care sort of thing. So that was a big impact. So, and we had to, through our negotiations, we had to transition back into kinship care, and that took about 12 months, I think, all that, about doing that, and he, still struggles now with certain issues, but where the other two children, they were always belonging and knowing where they belong. He's still, working his way through that, and the family's still working their way through that with him as well.
So it's created a whole lot of trauma in the family that didn't need to be created.
Yeah.
And you're talking about years of getting over that, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they didn't, because they didn't realise the family issues around our family, not, our immediate family were not taken away, but my mother experienced a lot of family members being taken away, especially her nieces and nephews, and she, for years, searched for them and attempted to get them back into, connecting with family.
And now here she is trying to do it for her grandchildren.
Well, we had to do it for her because she was sick at the time and since passed on.
Yeah.
But that legacy that she left made us stronger to do that process. Yeah. That's
a really important lesson that these people need to understand. Because sometimes it's almost like the system is more important than the people.
Yes, very much so.
Okay. Are there any other examples? You've probably got hundreds.
I've got one in a school environment. I was working in a school, and this child had been suspended from school, and to her, in her efforts to attempt to come back to school, because once her suspension, she obeyed the rules, and once her suspension was finished, she attempted to come back on the school grounds and have a meeting, but because of the educational policy that you were required to have a parent or guardian present at that interview, meeting with the principal or deputy principal. If a child is on school grounds on their own, and whilst they are suspended, they can be removed by the police. So this child actually made an attempt on her own to come to school and meet with the deputy principal. The deputy principal refused to actually see her and asked her to be removed from the school grounds. Now, she was a teenager, and in Aboriginal culture, teenagers are seen to hold their own or be an adult at that time, and they fail to recognise it, and also the policy actually does not recognise it, and that's why some children, they do stuff on their own merits and attempt to do these things, but then get knocked down for it. So that's another cultural misunderstanding.
That's a very powerful one, isn't it? Yeah, okay. Is there another example that you want to use in any other area?
It's very hard because in people going to remote areas, and yes, they do have things in place, and this is for all government agencies or different organisations, but they do have someone that Aboriginal person or so-called Aboriginal person takes them to introduce them to a community. But what some forget, that some people in those local areas haven't got the connections, and when they go out, they find out that they're not greeted as well, and it's most probably because the person that they are with and that are doing those introductions. I had a situation where an Aboriginal person had come from the city area, travelled to the remote area thinking she'll make that connection. She was teamed up with a person that was questionable, in the sense that her identity was questionable, and she took the person down to the reserve and just drove her around and pointing, this is this person's place, that's that person's place, and not getting out to actually introduce them appropriately to the actual Aboriginal persons. And I had to do that a couple of days later, and the person was more comfortable at that time. She actually made the connections after that. The things that the friendships that she built with the clientele actually made the big difference when it came to Sorry Day. The budget, she was given a very small budget, about $500, given that, and we did it so that she bought the stuff for the people, and she got each of her clients to actually cook her something up. And it was the biggest spread for the smallest amount of money, and that's their way of showing appreciation for the work that she'd done for them. And that's a big difference.
So that the protocols of working with and getting to know your community on a personal basis is one of the most important things, isn't it? Yeah. So if you were giving a message to any non-Aboriginal people that might be coming out into our communities to work with or for Aboriginal people, what might that message be?
Do a little bit of research on the area that you're going into, and when you're there, read the people that sit, listen and learn, Don't have to comment, just listen and see what the dynamics are before you start, getting out there. Even it's a pre-visit and checking out what's it all about, that community. Because it takes years of being in those communities to know what they're really like. Yeah, because
absolutely.
people only come in for a flying visit most of the time.
And that's one of the biggest problems, isn't it? Yeah. That's been really useful information. Is there anything else that you want to add?
No, they're the main ones.
Okay, thank you.